Namaste. Welcome to another edition of Community Cop. My name is Michael Graves, co-founding member of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. Let me get started by again saying Namaste, Hotep. Welcome to another edition. Certainly, we hope that all things are going well. This is actually the birthday of Malcolm, but want to start off with something that is near and dear to our hearts. On May 30th to June 6th, the People's Film Festival by Veronica Kitt, who put this together years ago, is getting bigger and better every year, the People's Film Festival. And Veronica Kitt is going to focus on day one at the Magic Johnson Theater in Harlem, Frederick Douglass Boulevard. Is going to have a documentary that she did on the Black Spades. Many of us grew up witnessing the birth and saw the elevation and growth and the expansion of the Black Spades. Veronica Kitt went through a process of finding individuals still around from the Black Spades and wanted to know what was the impetus of the Black Spades and what brought them into existence and what did they do once they really came together. It's interesting and you need to see it. You need to see the documentary that Veronica Kitt put together by the Black Spades, and that will be on the first night. She will do it again during that week, but catch it the first night at Magic Johnson Theater. And with that, let's get started. And again, the People's Film Festival, that's May 30th through June 6th. Now let's get started with this edition. We normally do a history piece, and I was going to just talk about Malcolm, but let me just quickly mention a few other things with respect to time. This is the anniversary of the Homestead Act from 5/20/1862. Deep in the midst of the Civil War, President Lincoln actually had a domestic policy where he wanted white men to go west. They were exterminating Native Americans along the way and taking their land. So he encouraged white men, any white man that did not take up arms against the United States and participate in the Civil War with the South, was able to get in excess of 160 acres of land, free land. And when you wonder why white people are so ahead of the game now, and they have so much with respect to ownership and money, we think they all earned it the old-fashioned way. No, it was given. Each family got up to 160 acres of land, some even more. So remember the Homestead Act, which gave these families now that are now millionaires and the like, how they started up these big ranches and all these things that they were able to do because the government financed it. And now they are against the government helping anybody up as if they pulled themselves up by their own bootstraps. So in any event, that was the Homestead Act. And also remember in 5/20/1961, the Freedom Riders. These were the Freedom Riders. Blacks as well as whites got together and rode through the South on buses, on interstate highways. And they were viciously attacked in Montgomery, Alabama, and they were given 15, 20 minutes by the public safety advisor, Bull Connor, at that time, who was basically the commissioner of the police department. And his excuse was the police were enjoying Mother's Day, and every police officer had a mother who I guess they were visiting at that time. So the attackers, the rioters, this mob was able to attack these buses and just beat everybody, drag people from the bus and beat them senseless at that time, and no one was arrested at that time. And they were given that free time under police supervision to do what they did, actually. So let's not forget the Freedom Riders and the contribution and courage it took for people who are trying to get voting rights and constitutional freedoms given to everybody else, trying to establish those in an area that was steadfast against it. And that was, again, in Montgomery, Alabama. Now, just want to mention Malcolm. Many people tomorrow will be acknowledging his birthday, which is the 19th. And they, as a group that always has been assembling well over 50-something years since Malcolm's assassination in 1965. So this is a group, and Malcolm was just 39, and now he would be like 92 years old. This is a group that got together, led by, at this time, Professor Smalls and Dr. Leonard Jeffries. So James Smalls and Dr. Leonard Jeffries, those are the two key people who, and members of Malcolm's family from which it started, put this together at the grave site up there and around Yonkers. It's every year, and it's a real joy to go up there. And I've been blessed. I've been able to speak there quite a few times over the years. And it's a real honor that was given to me by them to be able to do that. We have to remember Malcolm. When we honor Malcolm, we honor the best in ourselves. And we have to be the best brothers we can to each other and be each other's keeper. Malcolm said, if there was one contribution he made to us, is that we can no longer look at the white man the same way we used to, as if he was some type of God, some type of conqueror, some type of great person that commands respect and demands that we admire what he does. Certainly, you don't have to look at him anymore with trembling eyes. Nobody spoke the truth to power quite like Malcolm, and certainly we've had great luminaries in the past, and it would take the entire broadcast just to mention a small segment of them. Suffice it to say, Malcolm, at that time, nobody could say it better. Malcolm spoke truth to power. Malcolm encouraged our people, under the leadership, obviously, of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to do for self, to pick yourself up, to take yourself out of the mud, clean up, stand up, get up, and do something for yourself. This was the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and nobody took that message and ran with it better than Malcolm at that time. Malcolm represents manhood. Malcolm represented possibilities for all of us to have come up from the situation he was in, a broken family, broken by the system, by the white power structure, to come up in that, to early on show a level of scholarship and genius, but to be destroyed through situations, whether it was from the drug gang, whether it was criminality and various other things that attracted Malcolm to the streets. But in any event, he was restored by the Nation of Islam. And once Malcolm got back on track, he shook up the world. We should never forget Malcolm. We deserve to have somebody like that to come before us and show us, give us a real shining example of manhood. It's a shining example of possibilities, of what could be we can be, to take us from point A to point B, and then keep going, to keep progressing. Every year of Malcolm's life, you saw him get better. You saw him just fine tune his politics, fine tune his outlook. And that's what Malcolm said, travel broadens the scope. So we should all try to travel. We should all read. We should all study and get better, and then be a better brother, a better father, a better sister, a better mother to one another. We can do that. We are not the N word and the B word. We're so much greater than that. And that shows you the possibilities of how you can take yourself up out of the mud. Nobody's done that better than Malcolm. And that was a part of the nation, to be able to come out of the mud, clean yourself up, and then go back into that mud and pull somebody else out, and then go back again and again and again and bring somebody out and clean them up, and then put them for the world, and then give the credit to God, which is what they did so well. So Malcolm represents the best in us, and I see David said it best. He called him our shining black prince. And that's what Malcolm was, a shining black prince. But do not think that that's a level you can't reach. You can reach it, you can do it. All you have to do is put your best foot forward. The longest journey begins with the first step. So with that, I just say that again, Malcolm, big bad Malcolm. There are 1,000 other big bad Malcolms out there. Just accept the mission. And once you're on that mission, don't let anybody stop you. Don't let your friend, your next door neighbor, family, or anyone else stop you from being as great as God can make you. And God can make you great no matter who you are. And with that, I'll just say that Malcolm represented the best in us. And certainly that's the way you can show your love and respect for Malcolm, by being the best you that you can be. Let's get started. I'd have to say that I guess we normally call it updates. We were talking a couple of weeks ago, me and Noel, and we did it on the air if you go back a couple of shows, about Andrew Brown. And we were talking about how the DA showed 20 seconds of a tape where they had literally long minutes. They had they could have showed from different angles over a course of more than 20 or more minutes, different angles of what had transpired that day. And for whatever reason, which evidenced itself today, they chose not to, because they wanted to develop a narrative, and that took time. So the family was closed out of the process. There was no transparency with Andrew Brown's family in Elizabeth, North Carolina. And therefore, the family was disrespected by being shown 20 seconds of a redacted tape. Well, you wonder why the district attorney was just that cold-blooded and harsh. Well, today, you can see why. They actually maneuvered, developed a narrative where now they had to explain why seven deputies were placed on administrative leave. A couple of them retired. One of them, something else happened with one of them. So it was a total of 10. I think one actually put in his papers. And two, so the total number was 10 at that time. And you wonder, wow, they really are covering up something for 10 of them to be, all 10 is more questions than answers. So what really happened that day? Well, now we see why the DA handled it this way, why he shut the family out, why he was able to maneuver things and refuse even to show redacted tapes, just show 20 seconds of a possible 20 minutes or more that he could have shown from various angles. Today, he showed about a minute long tape to a room full of journalists without the family being present. And his excuse was that he didn't want to deal with the family because their family initially put out a lot of misleading so-called facts, and that he had a discussion with family attorneys, and those attorneys were not duly accredited with North Carolina law, the bar. Consequently, he chose not to deal with them because they were not North Carolina bar attorneys. So, which kind of makes me think that I'm almost certain that it must have been the settlement czar, Benjamin Crump, more than likely, I'm certain was the person, and he just dismissed him. I know people, Reverend Sharpton calls him America's Attorney General. He is not Black America's attorney. He is America's attorney, white America's Attorney General, because he helps them and just settling the case, and none of the police officers' questions are really raised about their behavior and conduct. But in this particular case, he was shut out of the process. Now, as you have heard me say in the past, Benjamin Crump is on a good guy list where he is literally accepted everywhere. They know that he doesn't have a license to go to all of these states. And there are certain steps that you have to go through in order to be able to in any way practice law in many states. However, they basically look the other way and allow him to do these cases because he's a friend of the court. He's a friend. They on their good guy list, the same way the people who financed Sharpton and made him a millionaire, same people that finance and allow Benjamin Crump to come in and co-opt the Black community, which prevents organically linked leadership to grow, to come out there, show leadership, grow. And if they're gonna make mistakes along the way, so what? You make mistakes, but you grow in that process. So in any event, the district attorney today, and his name is Andrew Wambu. Andrew Wambu. What he chose to do today was he showed about a minute long clip of the events of that day. And you see actually Andrew Brown's car go backwards 4 to 5 feet and then go forward and veer away from the officers in turn who consequently shot him and killed him. Now, they gave verbal orders for him to get out of the car. He did not comply with their orders. They had, it looked like many of the officers were dressed in emergency service gear. This is not the traditional deputy uniform. It was much more extensive than that. They had a truck and apparatus controlling military weapons that was being carried to that event. One of the officers had an AR-15, 2 with a Glock that shot him. 3 officers shot out of the 10, out of at least 10 officers there, 3 of them shot. The district attorney will not be forthcoming with who actually killed Andrew Brown with the headshot. He won't even say, was it the AR-15 or which Glock it came from. He said the bullet tumbled. I mean, as if that's a prevention from determining whose weapon it came out of. He said the bullet tumbled when it hit the backrest because he was shot from behind. So where your head rests in the vehicle, he said the bullet might have hit that and created a tumbling action when it went into the back of his head. And somehow he claims that ballistics can't reveal who, or he chose not to seek any further after that because he knows full well that you can go through the painstaking process and find out which gun that round came from. So they have determined that that was the kill shot. But in any event, he's not going to say, and didn't go as far to, because it's not important to him. He went on to say that it's even not important that how fast the car was going. If it was going 1 mile an hour, he even had the temerity to say he doesn't care if the car was moving or not, even though the car was moving, because it veered away from the officer's path and he was able to start a flight. He was fleeing. And they chose not to allow him to leave. And 3 officers, 3 deputies shot their weapons. Like I said, 2 had Glocks and 1 had an AR-15, and he was shot. They dispensed 14 rounds that went into the side and the back of the vehicle, and they won't say how many shot from what weapon and what weapon was the kill shot. But in any event, he cherry-picked with respect to Supreme Court decisions, which one to use, and he used one where there was a high-speed chase in which they were authorized, given that chase and the gravity of that chase, to dispense rounds and to kill that person. So today, the DA Wambu said that he's justifying their actions. So all 14 shots where he said it was justified because Wambi says that Andrew Brown used the vehicle as a weapon. Consequently, the officers reserved the right to defend themselves. And since they had a warrant for his arrest, they did not have to let him leave that area to pick him up later that day or the next day. They said that they were on a mission and they were going to complete the task at hand. Now, you know that they had his information. They had a warrant for his arrest and a warrant to search his vehicle. He must have known something. They said he spent that night. They went by his house earlier and he wasn't there. So they kind of knew that he spent the night in the hotel or somewhere. So they caught him the next day, early that morning, and they were going to bring him in regardless. To what extent do you have to bring someone in where it's going to cost that person their life? Well, he made the determination. If you look, you can see that Andrew Brown could have drove his car into 2 officers. He veered away from them. And this is critical and very important. He veered his vehicle away from them, and you could see it because they were on dirt and grass. You can actually see the tread marks, the tire marks on how he veered away from them. You could see him back up 4 to 5 feet, then move the car forward and in moving it forward, he veered away. You can only accept and say that it's justified if you fix your mind on the car was being used as a weapon. So he had a weapon, they had a weapon. He used his weapon, the car, they used their weapon, their semi-automatic Glocks, as well as an AR-15. And he says if one shot is justified, according to statutes in North Carolina, that they're utilizing with respect to, as I said, he cherry-picked the case, a high-speed chase. He's saying all 14 rounds that they shot were justified. He said if one is justified, all of them are justified, and he's not looking into who did what, saying that it was all justified. Consequently, he's not charging any of them in the death of Andrew Brown. Now, I didn't say he's going to charge one or two or those three and let the rest, the other 7, go. He said nobody's being charged. All actions that day was justified. And he was hostile and dismissive when they asked the question. One of the journalists asked the question, how could it be considered a weapon when the car wasn't moving fast? He said, I don't care about the speed. And he said, I'm using case law. The person said, but he veered away from the officers. He said, as far as he's concerned, if the car was moving to the left, right, forward, or backwards, it doesn't matter. The car moved. He said if it moved, the car was a weapon. Now, he said this on national TV. You had CNN, MSNBC, all the usuals. Every news channel was on this and showed it this morning. The news conference went over an hour. And he actually said he doesn't care if the car moved. The moment he failed to comply, whatever those police officers did, these were sheriff deputies. He said whatever they did was justified. Consequently, he said when they moved the car, shooting into the vehicle was fine with him. He said all 14 rounds shot into the vehicle was justified. And the fact that he veered away from the police officers, making sure that he didn't hit them, he said is irrelevant. He failed to comply and there was motion. He said he doesn't care how much motion it was, there was motion. And there was non-compliance with respect to verbal commands. He said that constitutes the vehicle as a weapon. So, what can you say? He justified it in plain sight. I'm sure there's going to be demonstrations to follow in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. But I wish that, Noel, I would love to get another opinion. But what I saw was a person who was not trying to hurt any deputies. What I saw was a person who was merely trying to get away. He felt threatened. That's the first law of nature, self-preservation. He knew that it was a dangerous environment. He saw people in emergency service gear. He could tell by the way they were screaming, they meant business. And he took the flight. Obviously, he feared for his safety, and he felt the best thing to do is to get away. They were intent on not allowing him to get away. Ergo, killed. Cold, callous, killing. I'm going to see what the attorneys do I'm going to see if the federal government, they had a special agent in charge down there that had access to watching the tapes. I don't know what he's going to report back to Department of Justice, but he saw that small snippet. The whole Justice Department saw what was showed today on television. That should be enough. Just those few seconds was enough to show you he was trying to avoid a physical confrontation with those officers in question. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen. But if you get a chance, please look at whatever's on social media. Look at it, and definitely go accordingly and see what can be done. Register your complaint, certainly, because it's a shame what we saw. We're dying too easily in the streets, and that shows there's a lack of organization on our part. We have hundreds of mayors in various cities. We got elected officials. We got congressional figures. We got a vice president allegedly who claims to be Black. And yet there's no justice. This district attorney, left to his own devices, said that their actions are justified and there will be no charges. That's no different in what happened years ago in Ferguson. No charges. Okay, let's look at some other cases. And again, that's the case. Just go online and look at that. That's the Andrew Brown case in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Okay, in Cook County, State Attorney Kim Foxx went on to apologize for her assistant attorney, James Murphy, who told the courtroom that Adam Toledo, the 13-year-old boy that was killed in Chicago, that he was holding a weapon at the time that he was shot. It was a lie. Now that the video footage is out to show, without a doubt, that he did not have a weapon in his hand at the moment when police officer Eric Stillman shot him on March 29th. So now the district attorney's office, Kim Foxx, a Black woman, by the way, in case you don't know, she is going on to say that Assistant DA James Murphy, she's saying that what he said, she characterized his statements as miscommunication within the office, because he gave the wrong impression, saying that that he misspoke in saying that it was a lack of communication, and said that she used an Obama term. She said it was unartful. You know the way Obama used to excuse white supremacists when they would say something about Black people. It was an unartful statement. So she used that phrase in just saying it was miscommunication, instead of him being fired from his job for lying to the court about what happened to Adam Toledo, this 13-year-old that was killed. He had his hands up, if you remember. And they claim that he still had a gun in his hand when the police officer shot him, which the video footage shows that he was lying. So instead of Kim Foxx, a Black woman, and we've put these Black individuals in these offices to be the finder of facts, to give us the truth. But instead of the truth, we get excuses from them, and she found a way to excuse Assistant DA Murphy of the lies that he said in a court of law. So now what we have is a situation where there's not justice as we speak right now, but we'll see what happens with Adam Toledo, 13-year-old child who was killed. We know there's a gun culture afoot in Chicago, but that does not mean that every time you come up on a youth that might be a gang member, you shoot first and ask questions later. He ran and put his hands up. He followed those verbal orders. He dropped the weapon that he had and was still killed. And that assistant DA lied in a courtroom about what transpired. And so we'll see what's going to happen with police officer Stillman, who shot the youth in question. And as of now, I would say that Assistant DA Foxx is in the clear because Attorney Kim Foxx is allowing him to continue in his job. Man, you can't even make this stuff up. He was allowed to lie in a courtroom, and now that the video footage shows counter, she says his statement was unartful or inartful. Pardon me, inartful. Okay. So that's Cook County. That's in Chicago. Now in Colorado, State Representative Holtorf, Richard Holtorf, he made a racist remark while they were going over a debate over the economic budget. He was on the floor talking about $10 million that's going to be for film and cultural organizations, art, culture, that sort of stuff. They was debating a bill, a $10 million bill for that. And during that, someone was trying to rush him to get to the point, and he said, "I'm getting there. Don't worry, Buckwheat," to one of the Black legislators who tried to speed up the process, get him to speed up to make his point. He referred to him as Buckwheat. So the person in charge of the hearing, the speaker, said to him, Adrian Benavides, he tried to interrupt him saying, "I'm sorry," to which Holtorf said to her, "That's endearing term." In other words, before she can in any way scold him, to say that you should not to refer as, your Black colleagues, calling them buckwheat, he says it's an endearing term. So for him to say that so automatically to a Black person, referring to them as buckwheat, shows you what he thinks of his so-called Black colleagues. It comes out when you say buckwheat, it's a denigrating term. It's not an endearing term. It's denigrating. And he was able to say that. And so State Representative Leslie Howard confronted him later after the meeting, and she said that she had words with him about his language, and then she said to the press, "This is what I have to go through every damn day." So no one should have to go through that every damn day. If that's the way you have legislators in Colorado speaking to you, you need to expose them. They need to be outed and consequently removed from office. So here you have it again. The same way an elected official in South Carolina, Joe Wilson, called Obama a liar on the floor while Obama addressed a united session of Congress where you have the Senate, the House, Supreme Court, they all there, and Joe Wilson called him a liar. Well, so in any event, ergo, your title is the Honorable so and so. Somebody is calling you what you are to them, buckwheat. Now in Tennessee, you had a state representative engaging in revisionist history. This representative was talking about, now you know, a few weeks ago, we were talking about another state representative who was justifying the 3/5 clause. Now you have another person justifying the 3/5 clause. This person is Justin Lafferty in Tennessee, and he's talking about chattel slavery, saying that the 3/5 clause kept it from spreading, and he's saying that that was the intent of the founding fathers at the convention to ratify the Constitution in 1787. So he's actually saying at that convention, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and others, all the so-called founding fathers were there, and they had the understanding when they put in the 3/5 clause that this was somehow to limit chattel slavery and keep it from spreading, keep it on location, and keep it from spreading throughout the United States. Well, how could they have that understanding when they had slaves everywhere? Even in so-called non-slaveholding states, they had slaves. So you would take your slaves and, whether they were valet servants or whatever they was doing for you, you would take them when you would travel. So you could have slaves. It just wasn't as widespread in the non-slaveholding states. And even if they were in a so-called non-slaveholding state, if they escaped, it was mandated that they have to be brought back. It became codified eventually in 1850, but there was that general understanding already in place that they could be brought back to the actual owner, which I said was codified in 1850, but they had that understanding all along, or chattel slavery would not be operational other than non-codified, but in fact, practiced ways of keeping slavery intact in operation. So even the Emancipation Proclamation that Lincoln gave in 62, in late 1862, and then officially in January of 1863, even that was not binding in a real sense, and it wasn't revelatory because there were slaves in non-slaveholding states. Consequently, when he told them they had 90 days to put down their arms, and that if they were to continue bearing arms against the United States, then they would lose their slaves. They would lose their property. Well, what about in the states of the North? What about in Washington, D.C.? What about in Maryland? What about New York and Philly? They had slaves in those places. New York was a big slaveholding state. And it was in the North. It was under Northern control. Well, the Emancipation Proclamation didn't free people in Northern controlled states. How do you explain that, Mr. Lincoln? Well, The move was to was to get them to drop their arms. That's all it was. It was a political ploy. It wasn't to take away their slaves. The Civil War itself was not to take away slaves. The Civil War was to make America one country. They wasn't going to allow two different countries on American soil. It was to unite the Union. Simply put, Lincoln said he'll enslave every black person in America to unite the Union. He'll free every black person in America to unite the Union. So what is the true emphasis? To unite the Union. That's all it was. So in any event, when this legislature is claiming, and again, his name is Justin Lafferty, when he's saying that the 3/5 clause was not just about political representation, but it was to stop the spread. And they had that understanding. It didn't work because that was not the intent, to stop the spread of slavery. As a matter of fact, they would turn over in their grave if they saw the level of advancement that black people have right now. So there was never intent, because they were slaveholders. Literally every founding father, literally, not all, the majority of them were all slave owners and had major plantations. They were among the richest people in the country, the so-called founding fathers. And they had slaves. So they were not trying to destroy a situation of a planter society when they were planters. They had investments in cotton, sugar, rice, all the various things that at different times was the number one money maker at different times. Cotton later on, sugar, rice, and all that, tobacco, given different times in different locations. Even though ultimately, yes, cotton became king because there was such a great demand in Europe. But in any event, this legislature is wrong. He's trying to revise history by saying that the founding fathers were very well aware of the 3/5 clause and that its intent was to limit slavery and keep it from spreading. That is a bold-faced lie. Let's move on. There's a police officer who just got his job back. Police officer Garrett Rove, and he was the one who was fired. He's an Atlanta police officer, the one, in fact, who killed Rayshon Brooks. If you remember, about a year ago or more, he shot him in a what was it, Wendy's, a Wendy's parking lot. Shot and killed him from behind. And he just got his job back. Now, they have not tried the case yet. He's facing charges. He's facing murder charges. However, they said it was a technicality because he was fired within 24 hours of the shooting, and that his rights of due process were not properly exercised. Therefore, they're returning him to work, and he can just do desk duty until he doesn't have his gun. He cannot carry his gun around. He is not on patrol. He's just on desk duty until he faces formal criminal charges, and that's adjudicated. So he's still a police officer as we speak right now, which is a crying shame. I don't know if that had anything to do in any way with Mayor Bottoms stepping down at the end of this year. I don't know if that was a factor or anything. I have no idea what uh what led to her not running again. As she pointed out a few weeks ago, she's not going to run again. So I think at the end of this year, she'll be giving up that office. Whatever her political future might be, she has not said at this time, but uh, I'm sure that, or I would like to believe that she was not in line with the city's civil service board. They decided that through a technicality that Garrett Rolfe, deserved his job back. I don't know if they're formal or informally members of the KKK or what they are, because just to see his behavior uh, at that crime scene, if you remember, after Rayshard Brooks was shot, the partner actually, while Rayshard Brooks was laying down, he actually kicked him, and Rolfe took his foot and stepped on Rayshard Brooks' shoulder. So one officer kicked him while after he was shot and he's face down, maybe dead at that time. And then the other police officer takes his foot and put it on his shoulder, stepping on him while he's laying there dead. You know, you can't even mistreat a dog like that. So you tell me how, just based on that, watching him run and they shoot and kill him, and then you kick him while he's down, and I don't know what verbally they were saying to each other. I think he said, I got him or something, which is what Rolfe said. But can you imagine what they were saying if you stepping on him, you kick him, and the other one step on him while he's laying there dead? So in any event, that panel, that independent panel, decided to give him his job back. So anybody who looked at that video can see that those two police officers should not be police officers. And I'm almost certain that when Rolfe was fired, I'm sure that they took that into consideration. What is he doing with his foot on Brooks' shoulder, stepping on him? Like he just killed a bear or something, where he wants people to photograph him standing on top of the bear as if he brought down a bear barehanded, like it's an accomplishment. So I'm sure that that was a factor in him being terminated within 24 hours. That was part of the rationale, that this person is callous. As you remember, and I'm trying to get it all, there was a physical altercation with them, and allegedly, Rayshard Brooks took, either through when it dropped or somehow, he had the taser in his hand, but he ran with the officer's taser, and he was shot. It's starting to come back to me. He had the taser and ran, and they claim later that he stopped and turned and aimed it at them, and this is why they killed him. But like I said, if you look at the video, that wasn't true. And then the kick after there was no excuse for him kicking and then stepping on his back, his shoulder blade area, stepping on that like Rayshard Brooks was an animal. So just look at these cases. I'm describing things that you can't make up. This is not some sick movie that you can just make up a script and turn it in. Here you have earlier today, as I said, a DA, a person who's supposed to be the finder of facts, actually made a narrative in his mind saying that the car was a weapon, and in turn justified all 14 rounds. He said he doesn't care if the car was moving or not. What does that tell you? And his name, again, just in case, is Womble. DA Andrew Womble. He justified all 14 rounds. Said he doesn't care what direction, because they asked, the car's moving away from all the police officers, all the deputies, pardon me. The car's moving away from all the deputies. Said he doesn't care. Their actions are justified. He was able to say that with a straight face. I just want to know, I don't understand how North Carolina is manageable as we speak after he said that. Now, I haven't watched the television. I haven't been able to see what the demonstrations, I'm sure there'll be demonstrations after what he said this morning. I'm sure they had something scheduled for 5 or 6 o'clock tonight. So I haven't been able to see it yet, but it only shows you what a DA full of contempt, a white supremacist that hates Black people, the power that they have. This is the same thing that happened with Michael Brown in Ferguson. Same exact thing. The district attorney has chose, even though the evidence would say otherwise, the district attorney chose to justify what the shooting of Michael Brown was, and now with Andrew Brown, we see the same exact thing. Overwhelming evidence shows that you can't justify, the so-called fleeing felon. So in any event, I'm just saying we got to get better. Be more vigilant, observe this, be more discerning. When you hear something, when you see something, don't let somebody, because they are in authority, flip you from what your eyes see. Black man, Black woman, protect the Black child. Accept your own and be yourself. We all we got, but we all we need if we're together. Unity is the key. So again, stay strong, stay alert, and above all else, let's stay together. With that, I say, I bid you peace.